Welcome to part 3 of the resume trainings brought to you by Job Service Montana and the Montana Department of Labor and Industry. This training will cover the actual creation of your resume in Microsoft Word. We're going to jump into the actual writing of the document. We will work through each one of these sections. We'll start with setting up the actual document with the formatting information you need to know, entering your contact information at the top of the page, adding a resume introduction if you wish to do so, choosing a resume format, entering each and every different section, and finally spell check and saving your document. We'll follow the step-by-step instructions and work together in Microsoft Word. The instructions are written using up-to-date version of Microsoft Word, Office 365. So there might be some potential compatibility issues, but for the most part, most of the buttons that we use can be found on any version. Start by opening the sample resume. You'll find this in the File section of Moodle under Resume Writing Helpful Documents, and it's called Sample Resume. Alrighty, working in the Resume to Play document, we are going to make some quick and subtle changes to the document so that you can see how those changes matter and how they'll look on your own resume as you start to create your resume. This document has all the important components of a resume. You can see each one of the headings and the bullets and even some information that will help you write each section. I have put in red how I got these headings and how I got it to look the way I did so that you can utilize those tools and do it on your own as well. We're going to change the theme, the style, and then you can choose to change the colors and font as well. We'll start with theme. We're going to find these options in the Design tab. So up here at the top we have our tabs and you're going to click the Design tab. Themes is on the far left side under the Themes button. If you click the drop down, you'll get all the different theme options. Notice as you hover over these, the choices and how those look behind. And anytime that you have a little bar like this, it means that you have more options. Of course, you can scroll and look at more. So I'll find one that I like, and don't get too caught up on the colors or the fonts at this point because we can change that. I will choose Slice. When you find one that you like and you've chosen it, at that point write that down so that when you're in the blank document you'll know which one to choose. So write it down. Now if you need a minute to continue to look these over, just pause the video, go find what you need to find in there, and then come back and hit play. Next thing we're going to do is the style, and that's in the document formatting section. It's these little guys here. Anytime you have a button like this, it means go up a line, go down a line, or see all. So if you click this last little arrow with the line, you can see all the different options here. And you can hover over those and see what those would look like as well. And because I can't really see the title back here, I can click out of here. I can hover over each one of these, and if I decide I'm not really sure if I like those, I can click down a line and then look over the rest of the options. I think I'm going to pick that one because I like where the line is. Once you find the line that you like or the option that you like here, you are going to look at what pops up down here when you're hovered on or when you hover over that option, and it'll tell you what it's called. So this one's called Line Simple. I'm going to go with that one, I think. So far I have Slice, and this one's got a shadow around it, Line Simple. Now after we change our colors and our font, then this little option won't go, you won't be able to find it because it won't be the default option for themes anymore, so keep that in mind. Write those down. Next is colors, and you'll just hover over these options here and choose whichever one it is that you like. And if you can't see the changes behind you, like I can't, if you click back into the document and then come back up, you should be able to. Just does that every so often. I'm not sure why, but. Now Now when you find one that you like, just click to select it. I'm going to click warm blue. Don't go for anything too outlandish. We don't want it to scream unprofessional. Next is fonts. You want it to be something that's crisp, clean, easy to read. You don't want to get into anything that is too fancy, too difficult to read. So as you scroll over these, find one that you like. I like Gill Sans. I also like Trebuchet. And of course, you're always good with the good old standbys, your Arial, New Times Roman, Georgia. I'm going to go for Gill Sans. So now that changed the look of this document quite a bit. So we're going to write down those 4 things: your theme, your style, your color, and your font. And then we're ready to move on to the next section. Start by opening a blank Word document. Next, we'll change the design theme, the document format, colors, and font to match that sample resume that we were just playing with. To open a blank Word document, you have a couple of options. If you have the W in the taskbar down here, the Word document, you can do a right click and then you can come up to this word and it will open a blank Word document. Assuming you do not have that on your taskbar, you will click your Start button on the far left corner and then come up and scroll through these options. They should be alphabetized and it will be under W. And then just click to open a blank document. Now that we have our blank Word document, we are going to implement those changes that we put on the sample resume into this blank Word document. We're going to start with the Design tab at the top. You're going to find the theme that you chose. Find the style that you chose. That's the one I had. And then change your color to the color that you liked. And the font to the font that you liked. Now, although nothing has changed on the page, it is set up to look like the sample resume did as you left that document. Resumes should have a 0.75 to a 1-inch margin. However, we do want the top margin to be just half an inch or 0.5 so that your name is right at the center top and that we don't waste a bunch of valuable real estate. So we're going to follow these instructions to change the margins of your page to 0.5 for the top, and we'll just leave the other margins at 1 inch for now. So go to the layout, margins, and then change in here. We'll go to the layout tab at the top. On the far left side, you have a margins button. Click margins. And because we do have an option that's narrow 0.5, but we really don't want all the other margins to be that narrow, so we need to do a custom margin. So come all the way down to the bottom and choose custom margins. And then here we're just going to make the changes. We can leave the left and the right at 1 inch and the bottom at 1 inch for now. What I suggest is that you type up your resume, and if you decide that you need a little bit more space, you can always come in here and skinny this up a little. I do not suggest going any lower than 0.75 on the bottom and the left and the right. Real importance here is that left and right always stay the same. You want to keep that uniformity. And as far as changing the top, though, we do want to change that to a half inch. So we're going to use these little drop down boxes. It's set at 1 inch now. So as we go down, they'll go down in 1/10 inch increments. So just click your drop down until you get to 0.5 and then click OK. And we're going to leave the rest at 1 inch for now. Now we're at the top center of the page and we've skinnied up that option there. Next, we'll add the contact information top center. So we'll choose a title or a heading style and then type the information. We'll start by entering our name and contact information at the top of the screen. So make sure your cursor is at the top. Click if it's not. We will choose right off the bat what kind of a heading we want to use for our name. The sample resume used the title option, although you could use heading 1 or heading 2, or you could just use the font options to make it bigger, bold, or better. So we are going to go to the Home tab, Style section, and these options are where you're going to find those different heading and title options. If you don't see what you want, of course you have different options here. You have up a level, down a level, or see all. There's the title option, which was what we used on the sample resume. That does not have to be what you use, but that is what I'm going to choose. And then type the jobs. Your name will be Jobby McJobster. And when you're done typing your name, click enter. Next, we'll click our contact information. You want to include the city and state, your phone number with your area code, and a professional email address. You could also include a LinkedIn URL if your LinkedIn profile is positive and professional. You can type those in any order. It doesn't matter what order you put those in. We can insert a symbol, a nice basic symbol like a circle like you would find in a bullet, or you could use the vertical bar, which is my favorite, to separate those different sections. So I'll start with the city, do a comma, space, and the 2 letters for the state. Always put a space between whatever you're going to use for your separator. If you want a vertical bar, that's going to be the shift key and your backslash. The backslash is the slash option that's under your backspace button on your keyboard. So the shift with the backslash button will give you a vertical bar. If you prefer to have a circle or something like that, you can find that in the Insert tab, the Symbols button, and then in here you would have to click More Symbols, and you can find the option that you want. Click Insert, Close, and there it is. Once you have it once, it's easier to find. If I wanted to insert another one, we'll put phone number. And it's the formatting is parenthesis, number, parenthesis, space, number, dash, number. Make sure you do another space. The symbol here, it will be in your recently used after that, so it's easier to find. Now I'm going to go back and change that to a vertical bar because I really do think that it looks more professional and better, but just don't put anything crazy like a skull and crossbones. And then we have the email address. So now as soon as you hit enter or space, it's going to hyperlink your email address. And we do not want email addresses to be hyperlinked. So we're going to remove that hyperlink. The way you do that is hover over the email that's hyperlinked, do a right click, come down to remove hyperlink. All right, so we've typed our name and we've typed the contact information. Now we want it to look the way that we want it to look. We want to make sure that they're both centered. So we're going to select all of the text we've written on the page so far. So that's putting the cursor at the end, left click, hold, and drag to select all that text. Back in the Home tab, paragraph section, the center button looks like line centered. Click that button to center it all. Now we want to make sure that the top line with your name is the biggest font on the page. It's important that that font is at least 20, 16 if you had a really big name and you just couldn't fit it on there, I suppose, but definitely the biggest font on the page. This is 40 with the title, and that's plenty big. The contact information, you could have that as a style format if you wanted. You could try that as a heading of some type. You could check out those headings and see what it is that you like. That subtle kind of look nice. Subtitle. Yeah, that's too hard to read. Strong is nice and bold. Like that. I'm going to choose strong and then make it a little bit bigger. And those options, if you wanted to make it bigger, are going to be in the Home tab, Font section, and you can either click this little drop down the old school way, or you can click these A's. The A with the up arrow is going to make it bigger. There you go. So now we have the contact information on the page looking pretty bold and good. Your resume introduction could be a resume objective, a qualification summary, a resume profile, or a resume summary. And you would do that either as a paragraph or bullet list, and you could use regular text. However, you could also use a different style format if you prefer. The resume introduction is next. This section is completely optional. You do not have to do a resume introduction if you think that it will help you to sell your skills and abilities and put you into the cream of the crop selection and give you better chances to get an interview. By all means, go ahead and add that. If you don't feel like you have anything to add here, maybe leave that and just let your experience and your education and skills speak for themselves. I like to write this after I've written the resume so that I know what else I would like to say but have not mentioned yet. So that's an option as well. If we go to write the resume objective, we're going to make sure that our cursor is at the end of our data here. When I click into that next line, what happens is I can see the cursor is a little bit bigger than it probably should be. I can see that we're on 16 in bold. So it's bringing in the formatting from this line above it. And I don't want that same formatting. To change that back to normal formatting, we can come into the Home tab, the Style section, and here's the normal button. If I click normal, it brings me back from being centered over here to the left, but I'm still in bold and I'm still 16. Sometimes it kind of gets stuck. To get it unstuck, if you click this last little button in the Style section to see all, and come down to clear formatting, it should bring it back to normal now. So now I'm at 10.5 Gill Sans. Now, when you go to put in your resume introduction, there's a few different kinds. You have the objective, which would be paragraph style. You have the qualification summary, which is going to be bullet style. You have the resume profile, which is 1 or 2 sentences followed by bullets, or the resume summary, which is really bullet style again, but it's achievement statements. I'm going to do a quick resume objective. So we've got in here administrative assistant with more than 5 years of experience managing a busy office, recent college graduate with an associate's degree, well versed in the use of common software programs such as Microsoft Office, Adobe, and QuickBooks. And I just copied and pasted that in there. The objective sometimes looks better if it's centered, so it depends on the type. If you have bullets, you always want to put those on the left side, but I don't have bullets, so it might look better to have that be centered. You could also make that font a little bit bigger because make it fit on the page a little bit nicer, make it pop. You're going to use up 3 lines anyway, you might as well have it really pop off the page there. And there you are. From here on, things are going to look a little bit different depending on which format that you choose for your resume. Remember, we have the 3 different types of formats: chronological, which shows progress along a career path and is the one that employers prefer, and it's also the most common. Functional works really well if you have some employment gaps or if you're changing careers and you want to show applicable work experience. And your combination is kind of a best of both worlds. It emphasizes your experience, especially if you're very experience heavy. So you're going to choose the format based on your amount of experience, skills, and your needs and for a particular application. We'll cover how to create each section. Your first section, though, is going to depend on the format that you choose. For this presentation, we're going to walk through a chronological resume because it's the most common and the one that employers prefer. So the first section for a chronological resume is experience. They really want to know where you've been and what you've been doing. If you decide to start with a different type of a resume, you'll just start with a different section, but you'll soon see that each section is kind of built the same anyway. So we'll start with an experience section, and you can name that a variety of things, whatever kind of suits your fancy, as long as ATS can pick up the fact that it's work experience. So you can put work experience or professional experience, relevant experience, employment history. It's up to you. Just make sure that you organize your resume based on you personally and your strengths. As far as formatting headers are concerned, and this is true regardless of which section you start with, you're going to want all of your headers to remain the same. You can choose a variety of ways to put those headers in there, and it's up to you if you want to just make them bigger and bold or underline them, or you can expand the font, and you, of course, can use a heading option. We're ready to start typing in the different sections of the resume. In this presentation, we're going to do a chronological resume because it is what employers prefer and it's the most common resume. So we'll start with the work history section. We need to have a section header that really stands out to let ATS and employers know that here comes my experience section. So we'll click into the blank space underneath your document here, the bottom of your document. Notice it came in as being still marking the 12-point font and centered, and that's because it's bringing the formatting from the section before. So we want to change that formatting to be a header smaller than what we've used up here in our contact area. Because I used kind of a different, I think I used an emphasis or a strong or something like that. To go one down is a little bit more difficult. And I think I might want to change this. And just as a reminder, you can change these anytime you want. So I'm going to select this text. And I want the one that had the line, so I'll just hover over those style options in the Home tab. And there's the one with the line, and choose that. Now I know that that's heading 1. Notice I'm left aligned, so I'll click center to put that in the center. And then I'll click back down here, and I'm going to choose heading 2 because I'm going to go one smaller. And then we'll see how that looks. I can always go back and change it to heading 3 if I like. And you can call your experience section a variety of things. Just make sure that it's easily identifiable by ATS. So professional experience, work history, work experience, something like that. And then hit enter. That looks pretty good. Now we're ready to type in the information for where you worked. You're going to want to include your position that you held, and that's the most important, so I like to make that pop on the page. The business name, the location, just the city and the state, and the dates that you were employed. And we'll want to make sure that we align that using a right tab, and I'll show you how to do that. So we'll type in the position that we held. And then we can separate these in a variety of different ways. You could use a tab if you wanted to, if you have enough room. I like to use a space and then that vertical bar, which again is the shift with the backslash, which is the slash button that's right underneath the back button. And the business, a space, the vertical bar space, and the city state. Now we're ready to type in the date, and we can go ahead and type it in now, but we are going to end up aligning it on the right hand side. And so you could put in your right alignment and then type it in, which is what we'll do. When we enter dates, they need to always be aligned on the right side. Much better to use a right tab, which we will go to next. Make sure that your dates are entered as month, month / year, 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 year. So 11/2021. When you're right aligning, if you right align first as you're typing, that tab will remain set as you're typing and you can use the right alignment on future lines. If you have it all typed in and you want to put it in later, you'll have to reassign it per line. So the way that we're doing it now, it should remain in there. When you go to right tab, there's a couple of things you need first of all. So we're going to look at this little tab selection indicator, and that is up in the upper left corner underneath our ribbon, and it's above the ruler. Now, if you don't see the rulers, we might want to be able to see those. So let's make sure that you have that out. If you don't, we'll go to the View tab. And in the Show section, there's a little marker that says Ruler. Make sure that's checked because you do want that ruler to be out. What we want to do is put, this is a left tab. We want to change this to a right tab marker, and then we're going to put it up in this ruler where we want it to be. So we will click on this little tab selector until it turns into this little guy. It looks like a backwards L. So I just had to click it twice. Once it, and when you hover over it, it'll tell you it's a right tab. Once you have that selected, we're just going to put it up here in the ruler. So I put it as close to the edge as you can. Notice that when you start to get too close to the edge, it wants to move this little right margin marker, and we don't want to do that. So put it a little bit to the left of the right indent button there. And if you click low on the ruler instead of right on the ruler, it seems to go better if you put it towards the bottom of the ruler. Once you put it there, you can always move it by left clicking and holding. So if you put it in but you didn't quite get it over as far as you wanted to, you can always move it over a little bit further. What this does is it's going to have whatever you type is going to be hugging that right border. So as you type, it will type backwards effectively. Once you put it in the ruler, it's now set, but in order to make our text go over to the right, we have to hit the tab button on the keyboard. Notice that puts me way over here on the right. Now I can type in that date. So let's say August of 2018 and then / this month, 11 of 2021. Now it types it over here on the right and it keeps it snug over here on the right hand side. The other things we might want to do to change this to make it pop, we could expand the font, and we could also maybe make the position bold or italicized to bring that out. So I'll start by selecting that and just making it bold. Home tab, bold. Make it pop, because that's what employers want to see, is where have you been and what have you been doing. Now we'll select this whole text and we'll just expand that font to make it kind of spread and look nice. So we do that by selecting it and then coming to the Home tab, Font section, and you can click the little arrow here it's kind of a corner button, and that will open up the dialog box for font. And in here we're going to click Advanced and then change our spacing to expanded. By default it'll go to 1 point, and that usually looks pretty nice. And then we'll just click OK. And see how that just kind of makes that pop. Now we're ready to put our cursor at the end and hit Enter again so we can start typing in the information underneath it. Remember to think like an employer. What would they want in an employee? How do you fit the bill? The job description will probably list expectations and skills, education, and experience that they prefer that you have. If you've done what they list before, it's relevant and it's worthy of adding. But list it as an accomplishment. So how can you quantify it? How did you do it better than your coworkers? If you're having a hard time finding the right words, consider the job description first. Use keywords from the job description and use them word for word. Attention to detail is different than detail-oriented. In fact, detail dash oriented is different than detail oriented with a space between. List items in bullets. Even number is probably best, but 6 or fewer bullets for sure. Make sure that your answers are unique with each position. Don't copy and paste from the position before. Make it stand out and make it great. Best practices say to enter promotions or different positions in the same company separately with different dates and accomplishments. It also looks great to put promotion in parentheses next to the new position as well. You want to list your accomplishments under your experience section using bullets. Use circles or squares only. Those are your professional options. Once you get those typed in, you can also move the bullets around a little bit if you need a little bit more space. Just make sure that those are all aligned from one section to the next. Some people like to put bullets into columns. You can do that through the Layout tab, which the second picture here shows the Layout tab with the different break, and you can even choose where to break. Let's enter the information underneath our work experience. Remember, we want accomplishment statements here, not job duties or responsibilities. We're going to use a bulleted list because that's easy to read and it's professional. To start a bullet, we're going to go to the Home tab. In the paragraph section, the bullet button looks like bullets, and you can do the drop down and make some choices. Remember, circles and squares are the only options that we want to use, so I'm going to use a square. And then we're just going to type in our accomplishment. Quantify if you can. If you can use numbers, it's always a good thing. If you can tell them how you were better than your coworkers. If you're going to use periods, use them on all of them. If you're not going to, then don't use them on any. You can also move your bullets around. So let's say that we want to get rentals here all on one line. To do that, you're going to select the text that you want to move. And in the Home tab in the paragraph section, these little buttons here, move them to the left, decreasing the indent or increasing the indent. So I can move them to the left or the right. If I just click boop, there we go. That seems to work and do the trick. Now, if that didn't quite do the trick, another option is to move this little square at the bottom underneath this top one here. So you want to make sure that your cursor is right there, and then you could just move those around. But you never want to move them further than the margin. That looks good. We want 3 to 6 bullets, definitely not more than 6. And then when I'm on the next line, it'll automatically go to a bullet. And if I want that bullet to go away so I can list another work experience, I just hit enter again, and it'll put it back where it belongs. Now, when I go to put more employment history sections, when I go to add more information, I find it's easier to just copy and paste this because it looks so nice and it's already set up. And then I can just make changes to the content. So I can just select it all, copy, which you could either do a right-click copy or you could come up here to the clipboard section and click on copy. I'm going to do this little guy because it's already open. Put your cursor back in here. And then you can either do right click paste or come up here and click your clipboard. And then you can change this so that we say, okay, receptionist, and change all that information. And you can add as many as you need to have. Remember that we want to go back 7 to 10 years and only bring in applicable information. If we had a job in between in that 7 years that was something that wasn't applicable to the job that we were applying for, maybe we would just put it in as a little one-liner. So let's say that this job was really a cashier at a grocery store. We want to show that we were working. Any town, state. We will say our dates here would be 06 of, let's say, 17 and through 08 of 2018. And then maybe we take out these bullets because this isn't applicable work experience. We can just put a one-liner of something that we did better than the others, than your coworkers, and something that is applicable to the job. So maybe you were highly organized and highly organized, maintained a perfect cash drawer every day. That way they know that you're organized. Those organization skills could come in at this job. And then we can just come right back down here and do another paste for our next job and change this to being the receptionist. So we aren't taking up a bunch of space with that job that really didn't matter, but we're showing that we had a job, we were employed, but we were doing something that was not applicable. And here are some examples of how employment history listings might look on your resume. These are the 3 different types of resumes and how the experience would look. So top left is the chronological, the one we've been working on. Underneath that is the functional resume, and then to the right is the combination. So it depends on how you would want to bring that in and how you might want it to look. You can choose. So the next section that we'll cover is the skills section for a chronological resume, but depending on the type of resume that you chose, you might be working on education or experience. When we go to name it, you can name it any one of these options, anything that's just going to show them what you've been doing, that these are special skills. Make sure that you use something that's going to let ATS identify this as your skills section. Let's add the information underneath our skills section. Ready to move on to the next section. In a chronological resume, that will probably be the skills and abilities section. You can call that a variety of things. So I'll click enter once and one more time. This one, I believe we used heading 2. If I click up here, I can see that it was heading 2. So I'm going to select heading 2 and I'll call this skills and abilities. Hit enter. Now we want to try to stick with this same formatting so that it looks nice. So with skills and abilities, we probably don't need to have where we got the skill, but we will want to use bullets in the same bullets as we've used previously. So we'll come up and choose our square bullet. I'm going to use my back to get him where he's in line with all the others here. And then we're just going to get our next skill. Remember, we want to take the information, make sure that it's applicable to the job that you're applying for. So let's say we're applying for this job. As we read through it, we can see quite a bit of information as far as what they expect a person to do, and we'd want to bring in that information when we talk about our work experiences. But when we talk about our skills, we have here years of comparable position, experience in a comparable position, computer knowledge, attention to detail, and Salesforce experience, which is a computer program. So if we have any of this information, we don't want to lie, but if we have it, we want to bring it in. Remember, we want to bring in the technical skills, the hard skills first, and then we will bring in our soft skills. So that computer knowledge is very important with this job, and I am just going to bring in computer knowledge, comfortable using various computer programs, including Microsoft Office, Adobe, and different customer management systems, which is just various different systems, which we're just identifying that we know what that means. Salesforce experience, that's that computer program, nearly 3 years of experience using Salesforce to manage customer information. Now we can start bringing in some soft skills. They had mentioned attention to detail. Remember, we want it to look exactly the same. So they have attention to detail, not detail oriented. So we will put in attention to detail. And then tell them how. How did we attend to detail? How do we do it better than somebody else? And because we've read the job description, we can see that collaboration is going to be an important piece of the work. So that might be a good skill to bring in. You can also bold these to make these kind of stand out and look a little bit nicer. We'll just select what we want to bold, the first part of it, and click that B for bold in the Home tab, font section. And we'll want to bring in 3 to 6 bullets. We do not want a long list of bullets, just enough to give them a taste for your awesomeness. Now, if you have trouble finding the right words, there are a couple of options. So you can go to onetonline.org. You can put in the position in the keyword box in the center of the home page and click enter, and then choose the job description that best fits, and go down to the skills, abilities, and knowledge section. And you'll see a lot of different options here. Do not copy word for word. That's not what we want to do, but it will kind of help jog your memory, and maybe you'll think, oh yeah, I did do this at this job, and just remember, how did you do it? You want to be able to quantify, if at all possible, and how did you do it better than your coworker? So yes, you used active learning or active listening, but how did you do that? And just like the work experience section, this is a great place to get your creative juices flowing, but you'll need to tell your own story. Group your hard and your soft together, of course, and the most valuable at the top. Another option that you could do is to do the word cloud thing. Copy and paste the job description into a word cloud creator like tag crowd. And the bigger the word is, the more often that it's used. That's an idea. Just make sure that the skills that you're utilizing on your resume are relevant to the job. You don't want to put a bunch of stuff that they aren't going to care about. Moving on to the next section, if we're doing a chronological resume, it's going to be education. However, you might be ready to start working on your work experience or your skills at this point. So we will start working on the education section, which you can call education, education and awards, education and certification. Make sure you use. Let's add our education section. Notice our resume is really starting to come together nicely. We have our heading up here with our name and our contact information, our objective, work experience, skills, and abilities. If we're doing a chronological resume, which is what we're doing here, education is next. So we'll click into the body of the document, click on heading 2 so that it matches these other headings. You can call this education or education and certifications, or whatever is applicable for you. We want to mock up and use this same heading style as we used for our work experience. So you could just copy and paste it all and then just make those changes as needed. Which is the easiest way to get her done. We're going to change cashier to being the official degree name, and you want to spell it out. You do not want to put BS, you want to put bachelor's degree. So let's say we have an associate's degree, and instead of the business name, we're going to put the institution. And then we'll put the date. You do not need the month if you're doing year. You could just do the year. You only want to put the year if it's within the last 3 years. So let's say that we were getting this college degree while we were working as a cashier. So maybe we got it in January of 2019. Okay, we get down into the next section here, and with bullets that look and act the same as the other bullets, we can bring in our bullet, make sure that we use our indent button to decrease the indent to line it up with everything else. And then we can put what our major was, what our associate's degree was in. So let's say it's office management. And you could also put the GPA if it is more than 3.5. And if you wanted to add a certification or something like that, let's say you had first aid or a forklift certification, you could do that here too. You would just put what the certification was and then the institution that gave you the certification and the date if there's a date that applies. Some of them expire. There might also be other sections that are worthy of adding depending on your own personal situation. So perhaps volunteer experience or certifications, awards, even activities. Just make sure that whatever you add is applicable to the job that you are applying for. Another consideration might be that if you're adding a volunteer experience, depending on where that experience is, it might disclose an affiliation that you have with a protected class, and it might actually hurt your chances of getting a job. So just be cognizant of that when you're applying, and you just don't need to give them any information that they're going to end up using against you. Now you can add another section or two if you need to. We have volunteer experience. Now you can add another section or two if you need to. We have volunteer experience or some certifications. Let's add awards because we had an employee of the month up here that we could add. So down here at the bottom, we're going to use the same heading as we used in the past, these headings, heading 2. We'll call it awards. We'll bring in the same information that we had up here because it happened up here, and we could always just type it in, of course, or make those changes if it wasn't the same job. We're going to change secretary to employee of the month. Same business, that's fine. The date, we would want to put the date that was applicable. Let's say it was July of this year. And it's always nice to end with a keyword optimized skills section. Just a couple of lines that just kind of bring in the skills, the abilities, the skills, education, anything that they listed on the job description that we have not brought in yet. So you'll go back to your job description, find the ones that are important, and then just type them in with little vertical bars in between each one. I like to center that, so I'll select it all, Home tab, paragraph section, and center that. It certainly would be better if this were up here on this other line though, and we've just kicked it down far enough that we don't have room. Yeah, I know I did that on purpose for you because this happens a lot. So there's a few different things that you can do to make some changes. One thing that you can do is there's some extra space here between Jobby McJobster and the contact. And so we can select the one that's kind of the problem child, come up into the Home tab, paragraph section, click this little corner button right here. It looks like an arrow, and that opens the dialog box for paragraph settings. In here you can see that under settings we have before marked at 20 points. That's pretty big. We could change that down to about 6, which seems to be pretty normal. And that certainly does look better. However, it still falls onto the next line. Another thing that you could change, in some circumstances, the bullets come in with some odd spacing in between those. And I don't think it's done that here, but we could always check. So select the bullets, same button, Home tab, paragraph section, the little corner button. If this little box, do not add space between paragraphs of the same style, is not checked, check it because that'll skinny those up and make them closer together. So we're just going to click OK there because we don't want to make any changes. One other place that we could bring between this line, the top line on each one, and the bullets, we have some extra space there that we could skinny that up. I wouldn't skinny it up before because we want it to kind of pop and for us to be able to see that this is the next experience, but we could do the after. So we select the one that's the problem child and then go to that same button, and we have after is 6 points. We could change that to 0. But we would want to do it on all of them. So we could just select them all. I'm holding Control so that I can select them all at the same time. change that to 0. That looks better. And these are already in there good enough, but this one we would want to change as well so that it looks the same. And this one is fine because it doesn't have anything under it. So we'll change this to 0 so that we match all of those up. And now notice it's all on one line, on one page. The last thing you could do is you could always change the margins. And to do that, you would go to the Layout tab, and then you would go to the Margins button, come down to your custom margins, and you could change your left and right margins. Let's say maybe to 0.8. Always make sure that those remain the same. They're going to be equal. If you change one, change the other one. Now you can see it all fits on the same page. We actually have some extra space, and it kind of screwed up our right tab, so we'd have to move those over. So I'm just going to do an undo because we had it all on one page and it looked pretty good as it was. So there you go. If you're using a document that was created by someone else, let's say you do go to job service and they help you start the resume at job service, or they start it themselves and email it to you, it might benefit you to change the author to yourself. Now keep in mind, if you follow our recommendations and you save it as plain text and upload that version, and you also save a PDF, and that's what you would be emailing to an employer, it wouldn't matter anyway. But if you want this to show that you are the author, you'll just go to the File tab in Word, go down to the Info section about halfway, and then under Related People on the right, you're going to right-click on the author and choose Remove, and then click Add an Author and add yourself. Once you have your resume written, you'll want to do a little bit of proofing. So read and reread your resume. Make sure that it sounds good. As you read it out loud to yourself, you'll catch some things sometimes. That'll be good. So let's go over just some kind of last minute tips. There's a handful of items that we should take care of before we save and call our resume good here. Let's start by looking at the bottom here. We have an extra page even though there's no information on it. When we hit backspace, it doesn't seem to want to bring it up to where it needs to be. So how can we fix that? If you go to the Home tab, Paragraph section, there's this little paragraph marker. It's called Show and Hide. It shows you all the different spaces, tabs, every time that you hit enter. These are paragraph markings, and we just want to get rid of those. So if you go to the end one and just hit backspace until they all go away, it should bring you up to the page where you want to be. Now we can take that, click that Show and Hide again to make it go away. The next thing that you'll want to do is look at grid lines just to make sure that all these things line up like you expected them to. All your bullets are lining up. To turn on grid lines, that's in the View tab. So View, it's under the Show section, and there it is, grid lines. And if we turn that on, then you can see that all of these bullets line up real nicely right next to each other. You can also see that these numbers, all of your right tabs are all snug up to the right side like they should be, so that's all good. Well, we can click that grid lines to get it off again. Always suggest that you read your resume out loud, read it, reread it, proofread it to the max. One thing that you can do to proofread is, of course, just read it out loud, give it to a friend. You can also go to your Review tab and click on ABC, check that document, and it shows you it has one spelling error, and then it shows a few refinements, punctuation conventions, and vocabulary. And so we can just click on the spelling and it'll show us what that is. And it wants us to change it to QuickBooks with a capital B. Well, yeah, okay, that's probably right. So you could either say click it and it'll change it, or we could have said ignore once or ignore all. So now it moves on to the refinements, and it says, okay, conciseness. Here it thinks that instead of each and every, we should say each or every. Well, I like each and every, so we're just going to say ignore once. Next is punctuation convention. If you click it, it'll show us where. Showing empathy, comma, and creating a strong rapport. Okay, because there's 3 items. That sounds okay. I'll click the button. There you go. And now vocabulary. It doesn't like our name. Well, our name is our name, so we'll hit ignore once. And there you go. We've finished that. Another option is Grammarly.com. I have added Grammarly to my ribbon for Microsoft Word, so it's just a part of it and I can just turn it on and open it. You can also go to Grammarly.com and you can just copy and paste in your document and then it'll go over it from there. But I'll show you what it looks like if you do it through Word. It does. And as it rolls through and finds its errors here, we can just look at each one. And it should put a red line somewhere near where it is. It's never quite exactly right, but if you click on it, it'll show you where it is. The cursor will go up to it. So becoming employee of the month, becoming an employee. I kind of like it is. It's. I do think maybe it should be capitalized though, because it is a award. Employee of the month. Okay. Identify greeted customers professionally, identified their need. Okay, so that's, boy, they're right on that one because this is in the history. So we want to make sure that we want to make sure that we're in the correct tense, and it would be identified their need, and it would be showed sympathy and created. So we will just choose each one of those to change those. Fix the agreement mistake. Needs. Okay. Yep. They're right on that one too. Notice how many things that it picks up on that Microsoft Office did not. We liked each and every, so we'll leave that. Strict. So that takes us over here. Followed strict. Yeah, that's probably correct as well. And then comprehensive, a comprehensive policy. Yep. Manual. Okay. And then it finds something down here. And employee, again, we're just going to leave that one be. Okay, so we have figured out all of those things and made those changes as needed. We could also check the resume checklist. That's a wonderful document that's also in the file section of Moodle, and just go through each one and make sure that everything is what it should be. Read it out loud, all of those things, and then we can save. Last but not least, saving your resume. Last thing that we want to do is save in 3 ways. We'll save as a Word document, a PDF document, and a plain text. We want to save as Word so that you can come back in here and make changes later. We want to make changes to your resume and send a different resume to every single job that you apply for, because you'll write it to the job you're applying for. So you'll need to have an editable version. To do that, we're going to go to the Home or the File tab at the top, upper left corner. Come down to Save As. Click Browse. Find where you'd like to save it. If you're on somebody else's computer at a desk, you're in a resource room or a library or something, you'll probably want to save it on the desktop so that you can find it and delete it easily, or maybe on your flash drive. So we'll choose desktop and then make sure that the name of your document is professional, that you have your name in the document, at least your last name. And we'll just make sure that this is saving as a Word document. It should do that automatically. And then we'll click on the Save button. And I'm going to replace the existing because I already had one there. Okay, there's our Word document. Next, we'll want to save as a PDF. The reason we want to do that is because if we were to email this to a business or an employer, if they were to open it in Gmail, it might open your resume in a Google Doc. And Google Docs sometimes readjust the margins and things like that, so it might not look like you want it to look. We worked so hard to make sure that our last line was actually the last line of text here and that kind of a thing. It might not look like we wanted it to look if we don't save it as a PDF. So to do that, same area, File tab at the top, come down to Save As or Save a Copy. You could also click the Save as Adobe PDF. That does the same thing as I'm going to show you next. However, this is not available on all versions of Microsoft Office, so I'll show you the way that is available on all versions. Save a copy, choose the Browse button, find where you'd like to save it. I'm going to go with the desktop again. From here, we're going to change the Save As type. So your name is still a fine name, but down here under Save As type, we're going to click that drop down and choose PDF. And then click on Save. And then lastly, we want to save it as a plain text document. Oh, notice this opened it up in PDF for us so that we can see how it's going to look when the employer opens it. Okay, we want to save this as a plain text so that we can upload it anytime it says upload, whether you know it's an ATS or not. If it asks to upload, it probably is. So that's how we're going to save it as a plain text, and then just make sure that it comes across like we want it to. So we'll same thing, File tab, go down to Save a Copy, Browse, find where you want to save it. I'll go to the desktop. Change this Save As type from a Word document to plain text. Not rich text. Rich text will bring in things like tables, which ATS does not like. Make sure that you're choosing plain text here. And the name's good. Where we're putting it, hit Save. And I already had one there, so I'll just hit replace the existing. It will open this dialog box, and yes, you want Windows default, and just click OK here. Now, my computer isn't set up to automatically open this document, so I have to click my File Explorer down here and find my desktop on the side. And here's my text document. I can double click to open that. And that's what it looks like when it's been converted to a plain text document. I like to make a couple of changes here just so that different sections pop and ATS can find them. If you put blank lines ahead of sections, it finds the section easier. So I like to hit an enter before work experience, also before skills and abilities, education, and awards. And maybe even over here before our keyword optimized section. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. We want to make sure that it comes in with an ATS approved font. And this we can find if you go to the resume tips handout, which was one of the documents in the file document area of Moodle. If you scroll through, there's a lot of great information in here. But at the end, it gives us a list of all of the ATS approved fonts. So let's say that we want to change this to being one of these other ones, Cambria. So here we'll select all the font, all the words on the page, and it's in the Format tab. Go to Font, and then you'll just change it over here. Find the one that you want. Cambria. There we go. That'll work. You could change the size and all that too if you want, and click OK. And then we can just resave that document. Save as. And because the Word document's open, it won't let us resave it. You have to use a different name. So we'll just go ahead and put Admin Assistant in here. And hit Save. Now another neat thing that you can do, and if you have that handout, there's a link, but you can go to jobscan.co and copy and paste in the job description, jobscan.co. You can click on that little try button. You don't even have to create a password or anything like that. It's going to show us kind of a preview of what it looks like when it does it. It gives us an answer for that one that they were doing, but we want to put in ours. So click that Update Resume. We're just going to copy and paste in our information over here, our resume. And where's our resume? Oh, nope, we want the text doc. There we go. And I will copy and paste in this. And then we'll copy and paste in our job description as well. And this was a short job description, so it's not going to take too much for me to add that in. And tell it to rescan. And it'll give us a score, 52%. And it tells us that we really want to hit about 80 or better. And then if you scroll down, it'll actually give you tips. So it tells you what it feels like you could have done better. And if you, so we're missing skills below. Let's see what it thinks we're missing. So the ones with red X's are ones we didn't bring in, and the other ones we did. So if we've supervised, we'll want to make sure we put it in there. Maybe put it in the keyword optimize section. Same thing with support and data. Those things. Very helpful stuff. And let's just go through a quick recap of what we've learned in this training. Start your Word document by changing the theme and the style of your resume document so that it stands out from the rest of the resumes that employers are receiving. Change your top margin to 1/2 inch. Use the same settings for each section header so that they all match and look great. Align your bullets throughout the document. You want to make sure that those are all lined up from one page to the next, from one section to the next. Align all dates and make sure that you're using the right tab option. Include any relevant quantifiable accomplishments in your work experience section. It's so important that these are relevant to the job description. Same line of thought here, include your relevant skills, but remember to tell the employer how you did it. How did you do it better, and make them quantifiable if possible. And one of the most important tips, use keywords from the job description. Get your job description and look at it often. And if you need any extra help, don't be afraid to call us. Call your local job service office. Our workforce consultants are here to help you. We can help you look over the resume and give you some pointers. We can even just help you create it from the get-go. Give us a ring. If you just Google Montana Job Services, you'll find a map with all the job service offices. You can click on the office nearest you and find our phone number, our address, and the hours that we're open. Thanks so much for attending the presentation.